Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Lemon Live at 5. We have lots to discuss with you. We are a few minutes late because we have some breaking news. We're going to talk about the debate, and you saw what the thumbnail said, lies on top of lies, and we're going to do some fact checking and point out the lies that were told on the vice presidential debate stage last night at the debate. So we'll discuss all of that. But first, we have some breaking news that's coming to you, and it involves one of Donald Trump's crimes. And I want to give it to you. So we're going to talk about JD Vance. We're going to talk about that. And interesting how the media coverage is different than the actual people at home as they felt and how they do about it. But let's talk about this breaking news coverage coming from, it's not from the New York Times, it's coming from Jack Smith. And in particular, the Judge Tanya S. Chutkin, of the Federal District Court in Washington. She has redacted some of the information as it relates to Donald Trump's plans to overturn the election to try to cling to power. And there's some very interesting things in here. I'm not sure how this is going to affect the case. We're going to learn all together about this. This is a report just moments ago that happened on MSNBC. Here it is.
Breaking news we're going to get to now. Jack Smith's election interference case against Donald Trump. Well, the judge in D.C., Tanya Chutkin, just unsealed the special counsel's 165-page redacted motion on presidential immunity. Joining us now, MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin. It is 165 pages. We've had it for all of, I think, 4 minutes. We obviously haven't been able to go through all of it. Still, this was what we thought would be sort of a mini trial. Here is the evidence we have against Donald Trump in regards to what happened in 2020. Is there anything so far that is jumping out to you now that we didn't know about before today?
Well, Kitty, one of the things that I would just point out is that we obviously know who the government thinks Donald Trump's most important co-conspirators are. In this indictment, there is a description of 6 co-conspirators, the majority of whom have been definitively identified before. That having been said, one of the things that pops out to me immediately is how many people here are identified just by P numbers, meaning they're not people alleged to be co-conspirators, but they are people who are alleged witnesses or participants in the event. And there are so many of them that even on page 13, which is as far as I've gotten, there's a reference to P76, meaning there are at least 76 people listed in this description, this detailed recitation of the facts that the government wants Judge Chutkin to see relevant to her immunity determinations that we know are involved here. And many of these people are people who came from the campaign world. That's the other thing that jumps out to me immediately is just the identification of so many people from the former president's campaign who were involved in what the government is now describing as purely private activity designed to ensure that he remained in office. That matters because for purposes of fulfilling the Supreme Court's mandate in terms of immunity, anybody who worked for the campaign alone and never was a member of executive branch staff, those contacts between them are, according to the government, fair game and should be fair game according to the Supreme Court as well, which recognized there is a realm of private conduct that could be within chargeable conduct for the former president.
Okay, so again, this is all new stuff coming in right now from, I'm going to read a report from the New York Times because what does this all mean? Well, this is a federal case, and if he becomes president of the United States, as I understand, and as a matter of fact, producers, let's let Charles Blow in. Charles Blow is from the New York Times, an opinion columnist from the New York Times, but he's going to join us now. And Charles, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. I hope you can hear me. It looks like your signal is a bit weak there, but Charles is strong and opinionated, and he should know the facts. So, Charles, we're just getting this information that's coming in from Judge Tanya Chutkin. It says, in a sprawling legal brief, partly unsealed on Wednesday, the special counsel Jack Smith laid out his case of why former President Donald J. Trump is not immune from prosecution on federal charges of plotting to overturn the 2020 election. Now, you know, we've had this whole thing from the Supreme Court saying that he is immune. This information, the unsealed documents, the brief, the redacted brief made public by Judge Tanya S. Chutkin of the Federal District Court in Washington adds new details to the already extensive public record of how Mr. Trump lost the race, but attempted nonetheless to cling to power. Charles, I'm not sure exactly how this affects anything, especially the election. As you know, it is believed that they won't get to these cases until the election is over. And if he becomes president, then this will go away. What is your read on this, if you have one?
Well, it's very interesting to me to see the state of the country and how it has partially absorbed this extraordinary thing. So even if the Supreme Court were right in their decision making, and even if Judge Chutkan were to not allow the case to go forward on all the counts that Jack Smith has laid out, we're not contesting the fact that these text messages exist. We're not contesting the fact that, when they were going after Mike Pence, after he basically said Mike Pence had let them down, they went after Mike Pence and they were trying to harm Mike Pence. They removed Mike Pence to a safe place. An aide comes in and tries to get Trump to do something to save Mike Pence, who is his vice president. And he says, basically, so what? The fact that none of this now registers as an election issue, that we are, hyper-focused on the fact that, the vice presidential nominee, Walz, misspoke about being in China. Like, that's so small. It was every headline today. But this thing about trying to overturn an election, which is basically trying to destroy the electoral process, is not. To me, it's just an extraordinary series of events that is, if I were not living it, I would not be able to believe that this does not register. And in fact, it's cooked in.
Mm-hmm. Joining us now on the line, I would say on the line, because there is, we can't really see Charles, but we can hear him very, very clearly. So Charles, let me just read a little bit more. And listen, I don't think you're wrong about any of this. Let me read a little bit more of it. It says, part of the brief focus, for example, on a social media post that Mr. Trump sent in an afternoon on the attack of the Capitol on January 6, 2021, telling supporters that Vice President Mike Pence had let them all down. Mr. Smith laid out extensive arguments for why that post on Twitter should be considered an unofficial act of a desperate losing candidate rather than the official act of a president that would be considered immune from prosecution under a landmark Supreme Court ruling this summer. I'm not an attorney. You're not either, but perhaps what does this mean? Is that I would imagine that they're going to present this to some judge, Charles, or try to present it to the court to get this immunity taken away or at least rescinded, correct?
Right. But what's interesting to me there, and as you say, I'm interested to hear from legal experts, because it was the day that they were certifying the vote, is that moment of certification or the prevention of the moment of certification the line over which Smith is saying, past this moment, he is now a private citizen. Before that moment, when he's standing saying all the things at the podium, maybe it is presidential, but after the moment that certification was supposed to have happened but was impeded, then everything after that becomes a private citizen because he is no longer the president.
Mr. Smith's 165-page brief was initially filed under seal last week. It was designed to help Judge Chutkan, who is overseeing the case, to determine how much of the indictment can survive the Supreme Court's landmark ruling in July, granting Mr. Trump a broad form of immunity against prosecution for many official acts while in office. Charles, we talk about October surprises, and we all remember Comey, right, back in 2016. And I think what Jack Smith wanted to do was try to avoid that kind of situation. But because this was, I think, partly because it was filed so late, and then the Supreme Court jumped in, might we end up with a similar situation now? I know you don't have a crystal ball, but it's giving 2016 kind of all over again.
Right. This right. We're not going to have a trial before the date, and it's interesting to me that Chuck can actually unseals it now. Like I wouldn't have thought that a judge wouldn't want to even appear to be dabbling or influencing the election at all, but she unseals it, basically a month before an election. So all of this is very interesting, and also it has echoes in a way to 2016, which is interesting.
The defendant asserts that he is immune from prosecution for his criminal scheme to overturn the 2020 presidential election because he claims it entailed, official conduct, prosecutors wrote. Not so. Although the defendant was the incumbent president during the charged conspiracies, his scheme was fundamentally a private one. That is interesting. What is the distinction, right? How do you draw the line between official acts of the presidency and a private one? And it seems obviously that's where this will hinge. Still, despite its narrow legal purpose, the expansive brief filed in the federal court in Washington also served as something like a trial brief, setting forth Mr. Smith's fullest exposition yet of what he has learned in his nearly 2-year-long investigation of Mr. Trump. That's the crux for me right there. It gives us, it takes us inside the case and gives us basically the bulk of the evidence.
It gives us more of the evidence. I'm still waiting to see what the full range of Jack Smith's evidence is. It has to be more than what we know. So here, I think he's just putting out as much as he feels like he needs to put out in order to make the case in the brief. I don't think that is the full extent of what they will present at trial, and I think that will put even more flesh on the bones. It is still fascinating to see all of the minute details, although we had seen some of this in the congressional hearings, the idea of the aide coming into the dining room and him being there and watching the whole thing on TV. We've seen a lot of this, so I just believe that he must have more than what what is in the brief.
Mm-hmm. Charles Blow from the New York Times. Charles, thank you very much for helping us with this breaking news. I wish we had more time. I wish we could hear you clearer. I could hear you. Some of the folks are having trouble, but Charles, we appreciate you taking that. No, it's technology. It's not your fault. Obviously, you wanted to come on, but you know what, Charles? I know you, and you're probably mad at me. You did this on purpose.
No, one day I want to be wealthy enough that I can have these automatic blinds that come down behind me like yours was coming down when it shows up. I just want that in my life.
It's just a shade store. Thank you, Charles Blow. I really appreciate it. So that's Charles Blow, an opinion writing for the New York Times, also a political commentator over on the MSNBC. So we appreciate him. I hope that you guys heard some of it. So basically, he's saying he believes that there has to be more evidence. It's a bummer. I adore Charles. I wish he had a better audio, says Trang Park 2. I agree with you. I adore Charles as well. Maureen Marfell said, I heard Charles. Thank you. It was a bit garbled, but hey, this is, again, breaking news. And again, there's some new information in Donald Trump's, in the case, Jack Smith's case, that is before Judge Tanya Chutkan, that, this whole idea, this whole immunity thing, that decision that the Supreme Court reached, they're saying it is wrong. They're going back to the courts and they're going to try to overturn it. Now, here's the thing also, I don't know if they're going to be successful. We are not going to have a trial before Election Day. I agree with Charles, and I said it as well. It's interesting because they tried in 2016. The head of the FBI, James Comey, felt that, and folks did as well, that there was interference in the election because of these decisions about Hillary Clinton's emails and what have you, an investigation. It happened so close to the election, and then it turns out he dropped it and there was nothing. But people believe that it already had tainted her, and it gave the folks, Donald Trump's folks, it gave them some ammo, so to speak, to against her, right? It gave them a talking point to really hit her on something and make her seem criminal, and that she was doing something that was underhanded. And they're trying to avoid that this time or in any other election, is what that we have been told in the past, that they would not do anything like that. And that is why some of the cases and some of the things against Donald Trump, they've been slow walked in part, not fully, because of situations that we're trying to avoid a situation like this. So again, it is giving signs of 2016, but we'll see. Summer Virgo 81 says karma, ? I don't know if it's karma. I have no idea. Maybe, because now it's him. The allegation is on the other foot. As they say, the shoe is on the other foot. Now the allegation is on the other foot. So let's see what this happens. And let's see if the Democrats use this as the Republicans and MAGA and Donald Trump used it in 2016 to smear Hillary Clinton. Oh, lock her up. She's got to go to jail. Look at her. She's crooked. That's where the whole crooked Hillary thing came about. So I wonder if the Democrats, who don't usually message and aren't as sort of devious in their politicking as the Republicans, let's see if they use it. Look at, I just realized it just moments ago. I did the thing in the fireworks game on. Okay, so let's see what happens. All right. Okay, so let's continue on, and we'll get back to that. We'll see if there's more breaking news and more information on that. I want to talk more about the debate. And I want to give some fact checks on the debate because there was a lot going on. Here's what's interesting to me, okay? I want to provide you with before that, let me see. Let's see. No, I want to dig into the debate first. I was going to give you an update on what happened to Hurricane Helene. We'll get to Hurricane Helene in just a little bit. But this is what I want to talk about. If you watched the debate last night, and you listen to, as I said, the Chattering Class, and we had a terrific post-debate show last night. And if you listen to the Chattering Class, it's, everyone from a person. JD Vance, JD Vance, JD Vance won. JD Vance is more polished. But also the narrative. Yeah, he lied a lot. He was slick. Tim Walz came off as more human, but he didn't win the debate. But what's interesting is that when you talk to everyday people, when you look at these focus groups from everyday Americans who watched the debate, it's quite different than what political experts, political junkies, news junkies, commentators, contributors. It's a whole different take. And I said last night, you never know. And go back and look. If you don't believe me, you never know how the American people are going to digest it. Because we can sit here all along and say, Tim Walz could have had a better answer about Hong Kong and Tiananmen Square, and that, maybe that's a controversy for us, and the answer wasn't good enough for us. I mean, I was, over the answer. I'm like, oh my gosh, that could have been a better answer. But I said, you never know how the American people are going to digest it, and I think they're going to think that this was my take. I think they're going to think that JD Vance was slick, polished, lied, a little slippery, right? But looked good, answered everything, did not look nervous. They'll say that Tim Walz was nervous in the beginning. He was truthful, could have had a better answer on Hong Kong, Tiananmen Square, but he came off as a real person. He came off as a real person, and they kind of like that, okay? Remember the whole thing about Donald Trump. He's not a politician, and that's why we like him. He didn't come off as a politician, meaning Walz, last night, because he came off like as a coach, maybe as a high school coach or a high school professor or maybe a principal of sorts. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the real folks who responded to the debate. And so I'm not going to do the fact check on Vance, but let's start with, there's an NBC News panel of undecided voters, and let's hear what they have to say.
You were going to say who won tonight. I would say that Tim Walz won.
I wonder, would everybody say that Walz won this debate? A show of hands. No pressure. Okay. Not sure, Claire.
Now, I mean, is that what you guys were thinking? Because it's certainly not what I was thinking. I got to move over to make sure that I get the center thing. That's not exactly what I was thinking when I saw it. I thought people would be like, yeah, Tim, JD Vance won, but Tim Walz, I still like him better. But these folks are saying the same thing. That was over at the NBC News. Let's go over now to the CNN undecided voter now talking about the debate and why this person is supporting Harris.
I'm going to be voting for Kamala Harris. One of the stark sort of aspects of that debate that really stuck with me was when they were talking about January 6th and how Mike Pence certified the election, and they were wondering if JD Vance would certify the election should Trump lose. And, you know, JD Vance didn't really give us a definitive answer, and I'm disappointed in that fact. And I don't think that I can trust someone, you know, with my vote if they're not going to respect it.
Interesting. Did you guys feel that way watching? Did you guys know something that we didn't know? Us people who are, you know, we the people up here going, hey, you know, this person won. I wish he had done this. I wish he had done that. Are Americans now craving someone who is more relatable? Someone who seems less vitriolic and less, quite frankly, toxic? Someone that they get a gut feeling about that is a good person that will lead the country away from election denial, from January 6th denial, from obfuscating questions, from deflecting questions about was the election stolen to, well, what about what Kamala Harris did? From moments like that one, let's run the tape. Let's roll the tape when Tim Walz asked JD Vance whether the 2020 election was stolen.
It was a threat to our democracy in a way that we had not seen. And it manifested itself because of Donald Trump's inability to say. He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously.
Okay. That's true. Anybody watching, I think Republican or Democrat, I mean, maybe some of the MAGA folks will be like, yeah, you know, he dodged it or whatever. But people who live in reality are like, you know what? He dodged that question in the answer. And so maybe it was sort of, you know, he thought he was slick by trying to refocus the conversation, but Americans at home got it. And I think I think when folks really got a chance to digest what happened on that debate stage, they were like, hey, yeah, you know, the guy's not a great debater. He said it. He's honest about that. He's real. It's interesting the time that we're in because I don't know what this is leading to. And this is why I tell you, I don't know exactly what the polls are saying and what they're going to show. Because you have all these folks, I mean, every single person, I think Republicans and Democrats said that they believed that JD Vance did a better job in the election. And I'm talking about, again, as I call it, the chattering class or the political class. But the real folks are saying quite differently. Even the polling is showing that. Let's see if I have some polling. I might have some polling in my research. I'm not exactly sure if I do. But if I don't, it's no big deal because that's what it's showing. And you have all of these snap polls now that are coming out that shows, again, that Americans believe that he won the debate. You guys tell me what you think. I've been hearing from all of you all day saying, Tim Walz won the debate. Tim Walz won the debate. And I got one text from my MAGA friend saying, come on, Don, you know, that was basically saying that was a TKO. I haven't answered yet to the whole TKO thing. I haven't answered him to that. Let me know how you think I should answer him. So let's do some fact checking. But first, before I do some fact checking, I want to go. This is a new Harris anti-JD Vance ad, which is interesting to me because they usually don't hit him that much. They're now hitting him after last night. And I want you to look at how they're doing it. Their tactic, the way that they're doing it is pretty interesting to me. Watch, here it is.
Concern about JD Vance being a heartbeat away from the presidency.
He is an extremist.
I certainly would like abortion to be illegal nationally.
A danger to our democracy.
JD Vance has said he would not have certified those electors.
We really need to be ruthless when it comes to the exercise of power.
A danger to our fundamental freedoms.
If Trump wanted to distance himself from Project 2025, why did he pick Vance? He wrote the foreword for Heritage Foundation President Kevin Roberts' new book.
You may know that we're good friends.
He's not just weird or dangerous, he could be a heartbeat away from the Oval Office.
Can he govern from prison?
People should be concerned.
And anonymous.
The former president has been off his game.
Anonymous.
He is so disoriented.
Would it take Betsy here?
Wow. So what do you think of that tactic? Because that's hard. I think is that the hardest you've seen the Harris-Walz campaign go? That's how you know it's getting close. The ads get more targeted, stronger, and if you want to say negative, but there's no BS in that ad. What did you think of that as we continue on? I mean, I find it very interesting, the way that they're doing this. What did you think? Rhonda Clark says, wow. Lapel Payne says, I wouldn't want JD Vance nowhere near the red button. Speaking of best ad ever, says Miss 50. Speaking of performance, though, Trey Black says, Vance was a better communicator, but lied and deflected. Walz spoke passionately and truthfully. You know, the American people are not stupid. Good ad, says Darren Anthony. Damn. That was money well spent, says Andrea. Interesting. Interesting. As it relates to January 6th and to the 2020 election, JD Vance is still out on the campaign trail as we speak, dodging the truth about the 2020 election. Watch.
Elected officials or election officials last week about they're concerned about people who are trying to undermine our elections. Why didn't you answer the question last night during the debate about who won the 2020 presidential election?
Well, look, here's the simple reason.
They don't like the truth.
The media is obsessed with talking about the election of 4 years ago. I'm focused on the election of 33 days from now because I want to throw Kamala Harris out of office and get back to common sense economic policies. But I also think you can believe that America needs to have secure and free elections.
Okay, pause it, please. Pause it. That's not, just re-rack it a little bit, please. That's not even a good deflection. And you can see the MAGA folks there when the person asked the question, which I think was a legitimate question. And I think it is a question. Similarly, Tim Walz will get a question from a supporter, a constituent, a voter asking about, I'm sure, the Tiananmen Square thing, and he has to have a good answer. And so, as I believed that he didn't have a good answer, most of you guys and most of America were like, I don't care, it's 30 years ago. That's basically how people feel about that. But on this one, it's interesting because he doesn't have a good answer. And because he doesn't have a good answer, and because he cannot tell the truth about it, because his boss will probably kick him off the ticket if he admits that it was stolen, that it wasn't stolen. And if he says that it was stolen, then he'll have to live with that for his entire political career, and he's young. And when he wants to be president, people will roll those sound bites back and say, look, when you were running, you said that the election was stolen. And they'll run those sound bites. He can't say that, so he has to deflect. Let's continue.
Needs to have secure and free elections, but also talk about the fact that just a couple of weeks ago, Democrats in the U.S. Congress blocked a piece of legislation that would have ensured illegal aliens don't vote in our elections. If you believe in American democracy, if you believe in our constitutional republic, you should be trying to strengthen American election integrity and not weaken it. So we're going to talk about election integrity because I believe.
Okay, when he says, if you believe in democracy and if you believe in all those things, talking about, if you believe in that, than when 60 courts across the land say this election was won legitimately. There's absolutely no evidence of fraud here. And if you listen to the experts, and even when they hired their forensic people back in 2020, the MAGA people, and they found nothing, they went home with their tails tucked between their legs. If you believe in democracy and you're not threatening democracy, then you go, you know what? Joe Biden and Kamala Harris won. How do we continue to do this? That's what you do. But apparently, JD Vance is not a patriot. That JD Vance will do anything for his own political expediency, just like most members, not even just the MAGA folks, because you had other people who were running before Donald Trump became the official nominee who had to drop out. And before JD Vance became the official nominee, they wanted to be president or vice president. People who know good and well that it was a free and fair and clear and legal election. It was the will of the people. And they couldn't bring themselves to admit to it, or they hedged it, and they're doing what JD Vance is doing by saying, well, we just need to make sure that our elections are fair and safe. And we just need to make sure that illegal, as they call it, aliens, their word, their term, are not voting. People who are undocumented, people who are not here legally, cannot vote. And they know that. But it's a way to dodge and hedge in order to drum up fear and anger from their MAGA people. They have to drum them up. They get so angry that we got to go to the polls and we have to fight against these, brown people coming over and they're stealing our jobs. That's what they're doing, ginning up fear and anger amongst the MAGA cult base. Let's keep going, please.
On account, but only the legally cast votes, and that's why we fight for election integrity, and that's why we care so much about it. Now this
very important place for the next 33 days.
Oh, shocking that it's on Fox News. All right,
Michigan.
there we go. Thank you very much for that. Proves the point, right? Speaking to the base on the cult base platform. Interesting. So that's what they have to do. Gin that up. And none of that is true. And I think maybe the folks over at Fox News were like, you know what, this is not true. We need to move on because he's not telling the truth right here. And we don't want to get in trouble again. We don't want any more dominions, lawsuits, billions. Woo, we don't want this. We don't want this. Now, you guys, you know who Corey Lewandowski is, right? I saw Corey Lewandowski about a week ago when I was on Dan Abrams' show on News Nation. He was on the show before me. I came after. We were in the same studio space, and I interviewed him, and we talked, and he invited me to a Trump rally. Maybe I'll go. Let me know if you think I should go. I'm still considering it. But even he was Donald Trump's campaign manager for the, he was Donald Trump's campaign manager for during 2015, 2016 campaign. He was the first one, and then they had a falling out. He got fired. The CNN hired him as a contributor, and then they got back together. But he was not. I don't believe he was running the campaign because then he brought in Kellyanne Conway. But he fell out of favor and then came back, groveled, and got back. And so now Donald Trump has brought him back again. His official role, I think, is advisor. He's not the campaign manager, I believe. That's someone else. So this is Corey Lewandowski. He's over on the CNN, also pulling the same stunt as JD Vance. Denial. Here it is.
Corey, why is this so difficult for the Trump campaign to answer? I mean, it's 2024. Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election? Can you answer that?
Jim, I think it's very simple. The American people have passed the 2020 election. They're focused on an election which is just under 5 weeks away. And what we have an opportunity to do now is to talk about two different visions for America. And what JD Vance laid out last night is a very different vision than what Tim Walz and Kamala Harris want to say. So, look, we can go back and relitigate the 2020 election, or we can look at what we can do to make America better for everyday Americans who are struggling under Bidenomics.
Yeah,
They're struggling under.
It's not relitigating. It's just a simple question. Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election? I mean, that's an easy
Jim,
one.
why are we talking about 2020 anymore? Does the American people care about the 2020 election anymore, or do they care
Yes.
about being able to put food on their table, gas in their car, home
I think
heating
one
oil
reason
in
why
their...
it's coming up, Corey, is because the former president has said on the campaign trail repeatedly that there was all this widespread fraud in 2020. That was not the case. And he's also teeing up the same kinds of challenges after this election. It hasn't even happened yet. So
Okay.
Yeah, Corey,
So people don't care. That's what they're saying. Now, look, say what you want. They're on point. They've got their messaging together. Everybody's going to say the same thing. This is the best answer. Nobody cares about that. Nobody cares about that. We don't care about that. We don't care. Why do you want to talk about January 6th? Nobody cares that people beat up police officers and then an officer died from a heart attack or a stroke. I forget. Officer Sicknick, why do we care about that? Why do we care that they beat police officers with flagpoles, especially since we are we're the party of law and order? Nobody cares about that. Nobody cares. It's over. It's gone. They're patriots. Nobody cares about, about whether we lied about the election or whether Donald Trump said, I want my 11,780 votes. Just give them to me that he interfered in the election. No one cares that this whole Jack Smith thing is going on and they're unsealing documents. Nobody cares about that, about granting immunity. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about 34 criminal counts. Nobody cares about 34 criminal counts. Nobody cares about being found liable of sexual assault, rape. Nobody cares about that. What people care about, let's talk about the future of the election. See, you guys are and fall for the okie doke. And the MAGA cult, they know, but they're in on it. So they're going to say, hey, it's great. They don't have to answer. And good, own those libs. They don't care about that. Don't care. It's not, and I'm right when I do that. They do not care about it, which is just fascinating to me how they can operate like that. It's fascinating to me how they can operate like that. But you know what else is fascinating to me? I love myself a good fact check. Okay? And this morning I played my friend Joy Reid's. If you missed the morning show, the Hot Topic show, you really missed a lot. Because there were a lot of lies told on that stage last night. A lot of lies. This is And one of those lies was about Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. You remember President Obama said, you know what? Now that people are liking it, they don't call it Obamacare anymore. Now they're calling it the Affordable Care Act. But before it was Obamacare when they were trying to hit him and saying that it was bad, right? Oh my gosh, what is this Obamacare thing? MSNBC fact-checking JD Vance's Obamacare lies. Here it is.
When it comes to abortion being top of ticket and front of mind for them on Election Day.
And bigger picture, Julie, there was also a key moment on health care.
Donald Trump could have destroyed the program. Instead, he worked in a bipartisan way to ensure that Americans had access to affordable care.
On day one, he tried to sign an executive order to repeal the ACA. He signed on to a lawsuit to repeal the ACA, but lost at the Supreme Court. And he would have repealed the ACA had it not been for the courage of John McCain to save that bill.
So if you're one of the tens of millions of Americans who now depend, Julie, on Obamacare for your health care, what do you hear there?
Well, you hear that you're going to be able to keep it. You hear that you're not going to be tossed off of your insurance if you have a pre-existing condition. It means that if you're a woman, you're not going to be paying more for your health care than a man. It means that when you go for your annual checkup, you're not going to get a bill for it the way you did before Obamacare.
Does JD Vance say what he said thinking that it would, because it is provably untrue, as Tim Walz pointed out, right? So why do you say it?
Because it's a fire hose of lies. Because JD Vance lied time and time and time again. Let's call this for what it is. I mean, everybody's being very nice about that. He was saying that he was slick. He was, erudite. No, he lied. He lied and he lied and he lied. And he got upset about it when the moderators, for one small instance, fact-checked him. Well, he should be fact-checked again. And frankly, I'm surprised that Governor Walz didn't fact-check him much more. But the reality is that Donald Trump did everything he could to overturn Obamacare. The only reason it's here today is because John McCain, as one of the last acts of his life, decided to save it.
Julie Roginski, Rena Shaw, great talking to you both.
That was
Thank
a great
you.
conversation over there on the MSNBC on fact-checking on that. I really enjoyed that. And I think the one, if we can get the one from this morning, the Joy Reid fact-check, I would love it. I didn't put it in this packet today, but I want folks to hear it because people in the chat are talking about it. So this is see an undecided voter up there, but anyways, maybe I'm looking at something. I'm looking at something way back. I'm on the YouTube and my YouTube is way behind. So if we can get that, I would really appreciate it. Because you're right. And I said this morning, that's what reporters and journalists should be doing. And you heard the commentator there on MSNBC just a few minutes ago, where they said, Tim Walz could have done a better job on fact checking, and he could have. Now I want you guys to sit back. I don't know if you're getting dinner. I don't know if you're driving home. I don't know if you're still at the office. I don't know if you are, getting your kid ready for school, trying to make them do their homework, if you're doing laundry, whatever it is that you're doing, you're at the nail salon, whatever it is you're doing right now. Really, 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 number one, I want you to hit the thumbs up. But I want you to, as you're doing that, I want you to pay special, close attention to the way it should be done, how journalists should be handling this election right now. Reporters should come with receipts because it's so easy. It's actually not that hard. But Joy Reid is showing people how it should be done. She's doing the work. Here is a fantastic fact check. Watch.
25 million undocumented immigrants in the country. It's probably more like 15, 16. He said that he repeatedly lied about Springfield again, and did it so insistently that he had to have his mic muted because he kept trying to jump in and continue to lie about these people. He said they were brought in through something called the CBP-1 app, and that is an app that immigrants can use to come in and get a certain kind of visa. That was launched in 2020 under drumroll, Donald Trump. He says that he never supported a national abortion ban. I have here a printout that is already circulating all over social media. This is from the campaign website of JD Vance when he ran for the United States Senate. It is headlined, "End Abortion." He says he's 100% pro-life, believes abortion has turned our society into a place where we see children as an inconvenience, on and on and on. You also gave one of the quotes, "I would certainly like to see abortion illegal nationally." He also said he was sympathetic to the view that a national ban would be necessary to stop women from traveling across states to obtain an abortion. So he's in favor of a sort of fugitive slave act.
Okay, pause right there. Okay. I mean, I'm just saying, and this is not partisan to do this. And I think that the media is concerned about doing this because they may seem partisan, and people will think, oh my God, they're picking on JD Vance and they're pulling him apart and they're doing that more than they're doing the Democrats. No, we're in an unusual time with people who are running who are what? A unique and unusual threat to our democracy, who have pushed up against our institutions, who have criticized and demonized our institutions. Who right now, we started this show with the breaking news. Sorry for the garbled voice of Charles Blow, but it happens. With the breaking news about what Jack Smith is doing and Judge Tanya Chutkin on releasing these unredacted charges and allegations as they are trying to overturn what the Supreme Court has come up with about presidential immunity. From the very same things that Joy Reid is talking about. This is how it should be done. Let's go with more.
said that as well. He blamed undocumented immigrants for everything from rising house prices, rising food prices, inflation, maybe ghosts and bad weather. I mean, he was blaming undocumented immigrants for every single thing. I think Tim Walz was really skillful in knocking those things down individually because he was speaking as a governor and could speak from his own experience. He did a great job talking about housing costs and how those actually worked. The bipartisan way to save health care was absolutely absurd. He said most of our solar panels are coming from China. It's literally the opposite. Google the Department of Education that says 80% of our solar panels come from, drumroll, the United States. Trump peacefully gave over power on January.
Pause. Okay, let's back up just a little bit because he peacefully gave over power and that. So I love it because Joy is usually calm. I mean, she speaks Spanish. Joy is a brilliant woman, right? She's Ivy League educated at Harvard. So here's the thing. Joy is out of breath with all these receipts. It kind of reminds me of a couple of weeks ago when I was on Aaron Burnett and I was like, I took some notes and I just sort of read off and I'm like, here are the receipts. And that's what reporters should be doing. You guys should be demanding that of people. And that's why it's so important for you to support independent media, because we can say things like this. But Joy, this is risky for her. Trust me, this is risky for her to do this. This made some people nervous. Watching. Going, oh man, oh my God, Joy. Quite frankly, things like this make advertisers nervous. Not everything he does is bad, and his supporters buy toothpaste. You see what I'm saying? His supporters buy the kind of car that I sell, that I manufacture. Am I lying? That's why it's so important to support us, to hit the thumbs up, like, and to subscribe. It keeps us on the air and able to stream. So Joy Reid, going through the facts with the receipts. Keep going, please.
Department of Education that says 80% of our solar panels come from, drumroll, the United States. Trump peacefully gave over power on January 20, kind of skipped January 6th when he was trying to overthrow the government. He couldn't answer the question, did Trump lose the election? A smooth lie is still a lie.
Yeah.
JD Vance is incredibly smooth, but he said, number one, nothing memorable. There's nothing clippable in what he said. They were just all smooth, bland lies. He got outdone by by Tim Walz, who may be awkward. It took him a while to get warmed up, but he won the debate because he actually had substance. He was relatable, and he didn't go in there to slay JD Vance. He went in there to show himself, and he showed himself to be bipartisan. He showed himself to be reasonable. Practical. He showed himself to be practical. He acted as a governor. And a lot of people are complaining that he didn't knock JD Vance out and that he wasn't rhetorically cruel. But that was not his job. It was obvious that his job was to sell Kamala Harris as president. He did that very well. He won the debate.
Okay, so here's the thing. Last night when Joy did that, and I saw all morning on, all over, oh, she's out of her mind, she's partisan, she's crazy. Was she watching the same debate as me? And what are the polls showing? What are people saying about the debate? They have a very similar, for the most part, the public. I'm just going to say, let's see, debate who won. Okay. The public has a very similar feeling about the debate as what Joy Reid is saying. That the polls are showing that people believe after they've digested this debate that it was Tim Walz. Why is it so different for people? Why is it so different for people? Very interesting to me. Very interesting to me. 74% of debate watchers thought Walz sounded reasonable. 26% said that he sounded extreme. For Vance, 65% of the debate viewers said that he was reasonable, while 35% thought he was extreme. Interesting. Thank you, Hiroshi the dog. It seems Jack Smith says Hiroshi. Jack Smith just released a new sedition documents, and I think the quote "make them riot, do it" by a close Trump operative should be the top headline all over the news world. Absolutely 100%. Let me tell you this, Hiroshi the dog. Thank you for that. I've been sitting here and I have not had time to dig into these new documents and this new finding, the unsealed documents. So I'm learning about it just as we were going on the air. Just as we were going on the air, I learned about it. So we're all learning together. Okay. So that's where we're going to go with that. And just really quickly, I don't know if we have, we do have the Diddy stuff. Someone asked, like, Don, move on. I want to talk about Diddy. Okay, so Diddy, there are 120 new allegations for Diddy. Diddy's about to be hit with new lawsuits for sexual assault and abuse. That is what a Houston-based law firm representing 120 accusers is telling some of their stories for the first time, including allegations Diddy sexually abused a 9-year-old boy. Now, these are allegations. But if you're going to allege something like that, you better come with the receipts, man. I know that Diddy is a public figure and the libel and slander laws, I mean, that bar is really high. But when you accuse someone of abusing a 9-year-old boy, that can get the accuser, the person alleging, the attorney representing, all of that can get you in trouble if it's not true, because that is really harsh. That sort of thing, if untrue, could actually taint a jury. Now, these are civil cases, I believe, but that can actually taint a jury and cause people to get so upset, and they'll say, you know what, the guy can't get a fair trial. So this should be careful. Anthony Tony Busby says a wave of lawsuits will be filed against Diddy in the next 30 days, including from an accuser who claims he was only 9 years old when Diddy and others sexually abused him at the Bad Boy Record Studio in New York City. Wow. This attorney claims that Diddy lured the 9-year-old to an audition with the promise of a record deal, and he allegedly sexually abused him. Busby says another accuser was 15 years old when they were flown out to New York City to attend a party where they were drugged and taken into a private room with Diddy, where he allegedly raped her before others took turns having their way with her. Okay, this is just disgusting. Wow. A big-time attorney who has sued a bunch of celebs, including Travis Scott and Chris Brown. Busby claims his clients, and he goes in. I don't even want to go because it's so salacious. But he's saying that they were typically forced to consume and drink a drink that was laced with xylazine or trank, a horse tranquilizer. Okay, these are really salacious charges. Again, it's an allegation. This is a civil suit, but wow. I don't know if we have the sound, but if we have the one of him, fine. If not, then we'll move on, because we want to talk about our folks, our friends down south. Okay, so let's go down south and talk about the hurricane. I was going to start with that, but then we had the breaking news. Okay, so initially, what my writer, Peter, producer, had written for me says, before we dig into the debate, I want to provide you with you all with an update on Hurricane Helene, the recovery efforts. So that's okay, Nikki. Don't worry about the Diddy thing. I just think it's vile and disgusting. And not that we won't cover it, but there's only so much I can take and read at one point about that. It's just, I can't deal with it. And I don't, wow. Yeah. Beth H says it will continue to get ugly for Diddy. It will. Someone says it was going on all through New York in the 90s. That's Lady K. Where are the police reports? Read those, says Shelly Shell. I don't see, that's a thing. That's why I said these are all allegations. And if you charge someone with that, if you allege that, you better be sure, because then you can end up paying court fees. You can end up paying lawyers' fees, all kinds of things There are all kinds of repercussions for things like that if you're not telling the truth. I'm not saying that they're not, but there are no police reports, I believe, because probably they would say that people are afraid or that either they were paid off or something, and something like that. Bridget McCrary, I'm with you. No more, thank you. As it was coming out of my mouth, I was like, why did I read that? Yeah. Okay. So down south, at least 182 people have died all across 6 states, and officials fear the death toll could rise following Hurricane Helene. Many more remain missing, perhaps unable to leave their location or contact family, where communications infrastructure is in shreds. Hundreds of roads remain closed, especially in the Carolinas, hampering the delivery of badly needed supplies. Some areas are so inaccessible, supplies are being delivered by mules and air. By mules and by air. What is this, the 1800s again? By mules and by air. They're in bad shape. This is going to affect the election. You know that, right? You know they may end up like doing some sort of special something because of the folks down there, if they're going to have access to the ballot box, if they're going to have the access that they deserve and are entitled to under our Constitution, they're going to have to figure that out. So they're going to have to get this stuff back up online as soon as possible, or there's going to be a problem. I want to show you some of the damage before I tell you what the vice president is doing. Check this out. Let's put this damage up, and I just want to run it by you. It is awful. Look at this. Look at this. And look, those of you who are just listening, this is a police car that is bogged in the mud, and there are just trees and limbs and roads that have just been demolished, giant sinkholes, trucks that are, it's moved buildings, it's broken. We're looking at, excuse me, buildings that simply have just been demolished. It looks like it was hit by a bomb. It really does. Buildings that are falling into rivers and ravines and lakes, and they're being taken away, carried away by the waters. It's really incredible. 182 plus people, at least 182 people, where they're having to get supplies in by mule and by air. More than 1.2 million customers are without power. That's according to poweroutage.us, most in the Carolinas, where things were really the worst. Major portions of the power grid were simply just wiped away. Vice President Kamala Harris flew down to Georgia today to meet with emergency workers.
And I am here in Augusta to thank all of the folks who are here on the ground doing this extraordinary work. And, I've been reading and hearing about the work you've been doing over the last few days, and I think it really does represent some of the best of what we each know can be done, especially when we coordinate around local, state, and federal resources to meet the needs of people who must be seen, must be heard. These are very difficult times. And in a moment of crisis, I think that really does bring out the best of who we are, and you each epitomize that important and good work. So I'm here to thank you and to listen. And Senator, I want to thank you for the work that you've been doing on behalf of the state, because I know you've been talking to me and the president and many others about making sure that the federal resources get to this beautiful state. So thank you all. And Mayor, I am now listening.
All right.
Okay.
Come on, guys. She says, I'm here to thank you and I'm here to listen. Have you ever heard Donald Trump say something like that besides, look, we got the best resources, we're going to do the best, and we are the best, and we're going to make Georgia great again. We're going to do this, and we're I know that you guys are having trouble with Biden. You can't get him on the phone, can't get in contact, which is a lie. The governor is having a hard time doing it, but where are they? They don't care about you. She never mentioned Donald Trump or JD Vance, hi, I'm here. I'm sorry. I want to thank the people who are working to make this better. And I'm here to listen, most of all. And then she finishes her statement. She goes, okay, so thank you, Mayor. And now I'm here to listen to you. Wow. Wow. Leader, professional. Demure. I had to say it. Demure. So let's keep an eye on the folks down south. Okay, so real quick, I want to show you. So it's just so much fun. I had the opportunity to be with a real friend. You know, when you have an opportunity to see an old friend, and you get to experience them in their environment, and you're just really happy about it, and it just goes great. That happened to me. I am so happy. Like I've been having the opportunity to see some old friends and to relish in their success and their platform and their space and their workplace, and to get to see that the work that they do so well and make us proud. You know, I got to see my old friend Joy Reid when I went on her show, and I just got to, you know, relish in her success and just her genius at broadcasting. The same thing with my dear friend and former colleague over at the CNN, Aaron Burnett, who is just so gracious and beautiful and professional and kind. And Dan Abrams, who I've worked with forever and I've known forever. By the way, I think I've told you guys this, but fun fact, back in the early 2000s, there was this NBC network correspondent, a kid known as Don Lemon, who came up from the Louisiana as a little boy with big ears and buck teeth. I got braces. And then, you know, I grew into my ears. And then became a network correspondent for NBC News and an anchor, a fill-in anchor on MSNBC, and then the Today Show as well. Who shared an office with Dan Abrams at 30 Rock back in 2001, 2002, 2003. The thing is that it was Dan's part-time. They said, we don't have a lot of space, so here's what we're going to do. Dan Abrams has this office. He's rarely here because MSNBC was in Secaucus at the time, and I was at the mothership at 30 Rock. So Dan would come in occasionally. We talk. He'd do his business or whatever, do all of his legal stuff, and we became friends. And then I got to be on his show on News Nation. That's why Dan and I were just so comfortable with each other, because we'd known each other since 2001 or 2002. So 20 some odd years, we've known each other for a long time. And so today I got to, it ran today. We taped it yesterday. I got to just spend time with a dear, dear friend, and I'm going to play some of it for you. Let me know if you want me to, how much you can play. I don't want to get in trouble with her or whatever, but she put it out on social media, put it out on YouTube. So I guess she wants us to do it. So this is me with my friend Sherri Shepherd on the Sherri Shepherd Show.
Such a great place in your life right now. You glow.
Do we have the
and
full
I love
one?
it.
Thank you, Sherri. Full clip. Do we have the full clip of the Sherri Shepherd Show, the one that I sent from the YouTube? If we do, that's the one that I want to see. Because that's, while you're doing it, you can roll, there's a little clip that you can roll that little clip if you're finding the other one, but there's a full YouTube clip. I wrote this book because of my love of country and my love of God, and how that helped me to become the person I am today, and really to fight against toxic evangelical teachings that really sought to marginalize me. But also, as you know, I had a crisis of faith after my sister died, and I don't want to get too deep here, but you know, the Bible says question, question, question. So I started questioning, and in the questioning, it was like, you need to say what you have to say, because it's okay that you question, because at the end, I'm there and you're going to find me.
Absolutely.
Like going deep helps you to find me.
And I love it, because you will be jogging and you listen to T.D. Jakes' sermons while you're running. Do you ever catch the Holy Ghost while you're running?
I do. So I will listen to a sermon, and I'll be jogging down the West Side Highway or whatever, and he'll say, look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, you don't have to believe in my dream. And I'll be running, and I'm running, and I'll go, hey, neighbor, you don't have to believe in my dream. And people are like, hey, neighbor. That's a Sherry Shepherd. So anyways, I don't think we have the full thing. If we do, but because I'd like to play it from the beginning. It was just such a unique. Oh, we have it. Okay, let's play it. I think. Maybe. Let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a story. Oh, there we go. All right, we can't hear it, Nikki. Don't worry about it. We've tried. Is it?
I once was lost. My
There we
search
go.
for God in America. Please welcome my friend.
Got to know. I mean, like at least a dozen times, and I got to know her entire staff, right? Just because I'd been on so much. Well, Sherry took over the show, and the people who were there when Wendy was there, they're all still there. Sherry does a terrific show. She's changed it from what Wendy used to do, and she's doing it her way, and she's killing it. But it was just so interesting being there, a small world, being in the same space where I used to go on the Wendy show, working with most of the same people who are on the Wendy show in the same later. Have a fantastic evening, everybody. See you at 10 a.m. tomorrow.